change in myself, a massive change in my body, and the start of something which is going to be very strange. Well, I approached the doctor last year because there was a lot of changes going on in my body, and unfortunately at no point did they sort of mention that that was the start of what was about to happen. But subsequently, since then, reading up on bits and pieces in magazines and looking at the internet, that's the main factor of as to why what I've been experiencing. Yeah, I don't think I really had much knowledge about menopause, because I think the only thing I've really sort of heard about, I didn't really look into it much. I was just sort of waiting for it to approach. It was everybody was saying they were on patches and estrogen patches, and that's really as much as I knew about the menopause. Oh, and sweats. The heavy bleeding, especially last year, it took a toll on my health, massive toll on my health. And if I'd have known then what I know now, I would have been more experienced in coping with it, because I just kept thinking, oh, it'll get better tomorrow, or it'll be sort itself out tomorrow, but it didn't. The bleeding started off where it was just, so I thought, a normal bleed, a normal period, and then after 7 days it didn't stop. So I thought, oh well, it's just going to be on for a little bit longer. But then it started going on for longer and longer, and it went on for weeks, and that impacted my life in quite a big way, because I could not go to the gym, because it was I couldn't deal. The only place I could deal with the bleeding was at home. I couldn't chance being out, because the heaviness of it would sometimes just flood to the extent where I couldn't cope with it. It impacted my my health. I was very tired all the time, felt weak, and it just, I couldn't go about my day-to-day life. I had to give the gym up for, I think it was the best part of about 2 months. Couldn't go out, had to be careful of what clothes I was wearing, had to be mindful of what might happen if I was going somewhere, and you became constantly worried about where there was toilets, and did you have enough supplies to take with you, and I think the general weakness that I felt, which carried on and went on for far too long, in my opinion, without the doctors sort of, they did eventually, but it went on for far too long. I'd been multiple times, and then this particular day, it was my friend's wedding, and I went to the reception, and I spent probably more time in the ladies' toilets, and then I drove back home, and I thought, this is ridiculous. I feel absolutely weak, and I was tearful as well on this particular day, very, very tearful, and I just drove straight to the doctor's surgery. Anyway, they saw me, they sent me for a blood test the next morning immediately, and normally they said, oh, we will contact your doctor within 2 to 3 days, and I'd been for the blood test at 2 o'clock in the afternoon, and by 8:30 in the morning, when I was at the shop, they called me to say I needed to go in for I need to go to the doctors. So I went straight to the doctors. I had to be there for 10 o'clock, and I went from there to be told that I was severely anemic, severely dehydrated, and generally not well. And then they rushed me in on the Friday. So this was the Thursday. They rushed me in on the Friday, and I had a blood transfusion. And then I had another one the following week after that, because I was just not well. And I wasn't well initially after the blood transfusion, the first one. But then 2 or 3 days later, I started to sort of feel back to myself again. And then a week then the following week I started to go downhill again, but then I also started to bleed at the same time. So the second blood transfusion was okay, but I was also having blood in and then started to feel unwell again. But it sorted itself out by about so that was the end of August, and it sorted itself out by about the September time. And then for some reason it seemed to just be okay after the September. I just then started to go into a natural cycle of just having a period every single month. And then obviously things changed again this year. Quite tearful and generally feeling cold. But I believe that is down to when I bleed very heavily, which I have done this year. My iron levels are quite low, so that's something which impacts my... and then, of course, I also think it's something which has happened this year as well, is the fact that I'm just not... I think it's has an impact on me generally, you know, not just how I feel, how you navigate it, because you really don't know when it's coming, if it's going to stay for 1 week or it's going to stay for, you know, this year it stayed for pretty much most of the summer holidays. And then until I took matters into my own hands and got the tablets which the doctors prescribed. But that's not a great way to deal with those sort of things. But also it's not great having to deal with constantly bleeding all day long, every day, for weeks upon end. No, I don't at all. But, you know, knowing what I know now, I know what I'm dealing with. But it would have been nice to have sort of known that this was the start of what doesn't always happen to everybody, but these are symptoms of what happens. Because I just thought something was wrong, but it's quite normal for this to happen. I'm more mindful, yes, of trying to look after myself a bit more, you know, exercise, trying to eat healthy, because I do know this is the start of it. So with that rolls things that you've got to change, you've got to implement, and you implement them when you can, and trying to eat a bit healthier and trying to exercise can only be a benefit, can only be a positive, as opposed to a negative. The thought of going, you know, sometimes I think, I don't know if I can really bother to do it, but once I'm there, I come away and I feel better. You feel more positive, you feel more energised, but that's health in itself, isn't it? You know, it comes in turns. So if you think positive and you do exercise, you do feel better about yourself. You might ache quite a bit afterwards, which I do, but it's a good ache. I found my family to be quite supportive, actually, especially, you know, my husband, of all people. I would have thought he would have been, but he actually really was. To the extent he was quite worried. Yeah, my daughter as well, but it is what it is. But yeah, I found people to be really supportive. A friend of mine who's a nurse, you know, having talking with her about things, it's a great help, and you'll discuss some of the things that you've got and then some of the things that she's got, and it's helpful because we've all got different things. For example, my friend Nicola, she's very emotional and she's obviously going through it at the moment. I don't think I've experienced that emotional side apart from when I'm not so well, but generally I try to be quite a positive person, but with the best will in the world. Positive people, who my friend Nicola is, you know, finds things, you know, we find things quite challenging, and but that's all part and parcel of it. She's got the patience of a saint. She really has. But you know, do you know, many years ago, well, before I started this, at the time of the month, I could have shot people. My temper was absolutely awful. But the minute my temper stopped been as bad as it was, that's when this started. Nobody liked me in the house. Nobody did. And they'd all have the look. Yeah. But that's totally gone. I don't have any of that emotional feeling sorry for myself and, crying and all that business. But I suppose it's different people experience different things. I've got rid of that and got this. Definitely. I mean, I could fly off the wall because there was the other matching sock wasn't in the washing machine. You lose that. Well, I've lost that. Does that really bother me? No, it doesn't. I'm a manana. It doesn't really. And now I'm in that slow stage of. I am a bit slow. The socks all used to have to be lined up. The pants had to be ironed. No, I don't. Everything, even the clothes in the wardrobe. There'd be shirts, and then there'd be t-shirts, and the jumpers all be folded properly. The socks would all be folded in. I don't iron at all now. Nobody gets anything ironed unless it's a Christmas or an event. But I totally was OCD about that sort of stuff. And like I say, leading up to the menopause or the start of the menopause, really over the top at the time of the month with everything, absolutely everything, and it's now. Oh, I actually could do with a bit more of a push. And the washing as well. I'm like, oh, I don't care. As long as I've got clean knickers, thank you. It's got to be friends at the moment. And obviously the odd bit that you look up. And Davina, she's quite an inspiration as well, really. And she's got a fantastic body as well. So that can come to me soon. You never know if I keep working, playing my cards right. Yeah, I think really it's friends, family friends, because you ask somebody, and definitely, especially if you know a nurse, and you'll say, "Oh, ask them what they think," and it's word of mouth. I think it's word of mouth would be that, wouldn't it? Really, depending on how they're feeling, definitely seek advice, and if you can't get in to see the doctors. Look up online, but sometimes looking up online, unless you're on a proper site, can sometimes put the fear of God in you. So it's got to be you've got to look it up in the right place, with the people who have the knowledge of and the experience of people who've experienced menopause or the start of menopause, because there's a variant of things that can happen. Not everybody's picture perfect. Not everybody has the same. But it's definitely helpful, I think, to speak to friends and family. I obviously take supplements and vitamins to help me, just function properly and be as healthy as I possibly can. Not iron tablets and things like that, which is something which obviously the doctors would advise you to take anyway, or which they did tell me to take. I think that the first port of call would be to go and discuss it with the doctors if you can. But I think any changes, however significant or however small or big it is, you should go and see somebody about it, because you just don't know. You don't know what's going on. Your body's changing. It's sometimes it can be quite a frightening experience. I know I was quite frightened last year, and I would have appreciated a little bit more help with that. With dealing with that, but it was it was one of those things. But I do think every person should really sort of seek some medical help or some advice, because everybody has different symptoms. I had to educate my husband. I decided that the boys really didn't need educating, because it was just too much information for them. Yeah. But Jo was really pretty good, I have to say. And Summer was, I think she was frightened. They're just so wrapped up in their own selves at that age, which is, rightly so. But they don't. But then again, my cousin, my auntie, sorry, she went into menopause at the age of 30. And so is my cousin Michaela. She's gone into, she hasn't, I mean, she's 30, she's 35 and she's not had a period for 5 years. You don't think it'd be that early, do you? Well, they say if it doesn't affect you, then you don't think about it, do you?